Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you all for coming tonight. This is not a scripted talk. It's kind of a show and tell. So the pictures kind of lead me through the story. Some of you are no doubt from the, you're on the Shane Street Facebook site. It's good to see you. When I show my Ed Thede pictures, I think some of you knew Ed. We interviewed Ed, so what I tell you is kind of based on what Ed told me, so there's a chance you may know something may not seem right to you. Feel free to say so. We only have so much time though, but if I get something wrong on any of this stuff and you know what's correct, please speak up. Quick bio, I started out in Redford Township. 1964, my mom found an old farmhouse out on Kensington Road, so we moved out there in 64. I started 7th grade there, and I was pretty much stayed out there, went to Brighton High School until I enrolled at the Center for Creative Studies in Detroit, and I moved down to the Wayne State area in 75, I think 1975, and I was in the photography program, and I was just an explorer, I guess, with the camera. For some reason, I enjoyed going for walks, and one of the first areas where I ventured was Cass Corridor. So I walked down 3rd Street, and I photographed quite a bit in the Cass Corridor. Matter of fact, for a long time I was very active on the Cass Corridor Facebook site, and I kind of did the same thing with that I did with the Shane Street group. Posted a lot of pictures. A lot of people responded who grew up in the Cass Corridor in the 60s and 70s, so it's all very eye-opening to me. All right, I guess we'll just start here. A little introduction of photographs. This is a picture from the Cass Corridor. I made my way somehow into a really rundown apartment building on 3rd Street called the Niagara Apartments. 3rd Street between Charlotte and Peterborough, and I made friends with some people who lived there, and I photographed there over a 2-year period. So this was Lee Mullins, who they told me was a waist gunner during World War II. I guess that's in a big bomber. And that's his dog, Pamsy. One of the many pictures I took. Toward the end of this, I took a tape recorder down and talked to a number of people, and I submitted the stuff to the Detroit Free Press, and they published it in the Sunday magazine. The project ended when the owner abandoned the apartment building, and eventually the utilities were shut off and people had to just move out. Another shot from Cass Corridor. On the right here is the Chinese Community Center. Perhaps you remember this past summer there was quite a bit of talk about that because the Illich Enterprises, somewhat unannounced, decided to demolish it. And there was a lot of protests. They were trying to save the building. It's right on Cass at Peterborough, as you can see. Oh, sorry. This is Cass Avenue, Gold Dollar Show Bar. I spent a lot of time in the Gold Dollar Show Bar. I had so much fun there, I almost changed career paths from photographer to drag queen. But it never went that far. And a Masonic temple is there in the back. So that was a big project, ongoing Cass Corridor up into the 1980s. 1981, I was a graduate student at Wayne State University, and a friend told me about the imminent demolition of the Poletown area. I had heard of it, but hadn't really latched onto it, and he said we should go over there and photograph, so we started going over there. And I lived in the area, so I was able to continue, and he did it for a while, but he kind of stopped. So I photographed in Poletown from February of 81 until November or December of 81. I would drive over there 3 or 4 times a week, and with my big tripod camera, and document the area. So that's how it looked when there were still a lot of people around and a lot of cars. Where's this? Anybody recognize this little cafe on Shane?
Dan and Vi's?
Hamtramck barbecue.
Famous restaurant. Fisher, Carl Fisher, I believe was the owner. East side of Shane, between the Boulevard and Milwaukee, right next to Hupp Billiards, which was just down the street and down the stairs to the basement. So this was the wonderful, famous. And this is how it looked toward the end. This is the caption of this is the last, I think this is Trombley. Familiar with Trombley Street? West of Shane. This was the last row of houses. There were still houses in the area, but this was actually the last row of houses that were still standing. No leaves on the trees, so probably November or December. One of the last. You see the steeples on the right. You would recognize that as St. Stanislaus. That's right. Little did I know at the time that 8 years later I would be over on that area photographing and go into St. Stanislaus just a few weeks before it closed. Just after, when I finished the Poletown pictures, I met a professor, John J. Bukowczyk from Wayne State University, a history professor. He was very interested. He's Polish, interested in my work. And I met him, and he helped get some funding for the photographs, and we donated a set of them to the Walter Reuther Library, and I'm friends with John to this day. His name is on the cover of my book. He's the editor of my book. If it weren't for John Bukowczyk, I would not have a book. But John proposed to me in the later 80s another project, another Poletown project, only instead of me just wandering the streets with my tripod as I did in the area above 94, we would actually go into people's homes and interview them and photograph them. So this was from 1987 to early 1990. I don't have the numbers, but a lot of oral history interviews with people, homes and businesses, and took many, many pictures. I've been posting some of these. This is a Guyton family. The little girl, Carlita, went to Campbell School. The boy, Andre, went to Knudsen. Lillian Guyton and I were about the same age. We were born just days apart in 1953. Her building, of course, many of the buildings I photographed then are gone today. Helen and Emery Mead, they lived on Du Bois Street, sort of at the north end, just south of Palmer. And when I knew them, Helen was working at the Palmer Bakery at Palmer and Shane part-time. And they lived in a little house there on Du Bois. I met a number of people right on that street and went into their homes and photographed them and interviewed them. Helen had she had cancer. During the time I knew her, and she did not survive for very long. And I actually ran into Emery one time here in Hamtramck, and he said he'd moved into a rooming house here in Hamtramck. I photographed in the Brush Park area, which is a historic district, a lot of Victorian homes built in the late 1800s, which is just east of Woodward, John R. Brush, Alfred Street. This is the Ransom Gillis home in 1976. It actually really deteriorated, and a number of years later it was in a lot worse condition than this. The roof had collapsed and it was all overgrown, but it miraculously survived. And 8-10 years ago, it was restored. So you can go down there today, and it sits on the corner of, it's a beautiful place, condos, sits on the corner of Alfred and John R. Street. St. Patrick's Church was actually the Archdiocese headquarters for a while, built around the time of the Civil War. Was a functioning church for about 100 years, abandoned in the 1970s, just became an empty shell. 1993 it burned to the ground. It's fronts Adelaide Street and John R. It's very different down there now. There's been a lot of development in Brush Park over the past few years, but there are a number of these old mansions that survived. And then I wandered everywhere. I could walk down to Grand River. From Grand River, I'd go downtown, and this is out in front of Hudson's. I worked for a year at Hudson's in the advertising department. I worked on the 19th floor of the J.L. Hudson's building in 1978. I was the darkroom guy for the photography department. This is just a snapshot out in front of Hudson's. And just wandering through neighborhoods. The camera is, I've always thought of the camera as sort of a magic key. You know, people generally like to have a little attention paid to them, and they like to have their photograph taken. So people were very open to me, and I met a lot of strangers just wandering the streets. And I don't remember where this was, but I remember he put the basket on his face because he told me he didn't want to be recognized. Anybody want to take a guess where this was taken from? The Belle Isle Bridge. Looking, there's the
rubber company.
Yeah,
US Rubber.
This is all different. I've put my pointer the Renaissance Center. You can barely see it in the mist there.
The fog.
But yeah, in the fog. So that's down on the Detroit River. Okay, this is the Pole Town map that I have posted. Pardon me. Let's see. Here I go. Here we go. Beth Oldham. This green line. This is the perimeter of the Pole Town area that was demolished in 1981 for the General Motors plant. Dodge Main plant. The Boulevard. Shane, Joseph Campo. The Gray Lawn apartment was right there. Horton Street, Finley Street, Newton Street, Beth Oldham Cemetery. It's the only thing that is still as it was in 1981. That old walled cemetery is still there. Lyman, Paquette, Trombley all over here, Shane Trombley Market, Immaculate Conception Church over here somewhere. Yeah. 1961, so it's 20 years earlier, but essentially the same layout. And this is these first few pictures. This is the very first day when I'd gone over there and taken a few snapshots, but this was the first day in February of '81 when I actually took my tripod, my big camera on the tripod, and started seriously photographing in Pole Town. So these are the very first pictures I took over there. This is the entrance gate off of Joseph Campo to the Dodge main assembly plant. So this camera takes negatives, sheet film. They're 4 inches high by 5 inches wide, so it's a fairly large negative. This picture on the poster over here, which you will see tonight in the slideshow, shows you the detail that you get from a 4 by 5 inch negative. Looking north on Joseph Campo, this is Dodge main grounds over here, Mitch Bulldog Bar. This is probably Horton, Finley, Newton. That could be Newton or Finley Street there. Misty, I remember that late, February. It was a very mild sort of end of the winter. I don't remember ever being like really cold and having to get all bundled up and having it so cold that the shutter didn't work. It was really a very mild. It really helped me having the weather not so cold. But this was a beautiful misty morning or day. Now this is Joseph Campo looking south toward Detroit, the Gray Lawn apartment. Horton is Horton Street. Some of you may be familiar with. Here is Shane going off on an angle. Joseph Campo continues straight. This is Dunn Street. More or less the same view. The photographer was elevated, was up a little ways, but you can see, this was a real thriving area, the Milwaukee Junction and Shane Street, major business district, when 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, before things started to go downhill. There's the streetcar, but same view, Joseph Campo, Shane. Very interesting, wonderful photograph. So this first set of pictures are all the pictures. I managed to get up on the roof of the Gray Lawn apartment, and there was an alley, so I went down the alley, and there was a fence, and I crawled under the fence with my tripod and camera, and there was a little building attached to the back of the Gray Lawn, so I was able to make it up to the roof of that little building. From there I went through a window, found a stairwell, took the stairwell to the roof. I remember, like getting off on certain floors, and it was an L-shaped building. And just empty hallways, and you'd look in the rooms, and they were empty, of course, and strewn with debris, and you could look out the window and see. I wish I had taken more pictures from those windows, but at the time, I don't know, we don't think of these things, but it was a wonderful view from the top of the Gray Lawn. So I'm going to start, this is looking due south, and I'm just going to go clockwise around and come back around to south again. So we'll be going to the right. You could start, Shane Street, Grandy Street. It's fun, you can blow these up and find all sorts of, Hudson's is over here, of course the Renaissance Center, Penobscot Building. A lot of times you can see the now Ford building, the Michigan Central Depot building, and you can see the Ambassador Bridge. So these are all homes. And 94 goes right through here. Here is Stanislaus, which is still standing, empty. Milwaukee. Same view, but October probably. So a lot of stuff is gone by the early fall. So I just turned to the right a little bit. This is kind of looking back toward Wayne State. Again, that sort of that mist. These are houses on Milwaukee. Anybody happen to live on Milwaukee or familiar with Milwaukee Boulevard? Backyards of houses on Milwaukee. So the street would be Lyman Street, and then however it went, Trombley and Adele, and then the Service Drive. This was a church, the back of a church that was that faced the boulevard. Same view, but on a clearer day. This is Wayne State, the Maccabees building, I believe, over on Woodward. Wayne State buildings. Ambassador Bridge is right there, but again, Milwaukee Avenue. Now looking due west along the boulevard, it had this wonderful grassy median in between. The church is right here somewhere that I just referred to. Fisher Building, of course, General Motors headquarters. I photographed this church, Temple of Faith Missionary Baptist Church, and it was an Greek Orthodox church earlier. More or less the same view, but probably in October. You can see a lot of the houses have already been removed. Same view, shows a little bit of the Gray Lawn Apartments. This is sort of interesting. You can't see it real well here, but this is all flooded. So all the cars coming over the railroad tracks, coming from Woodward Avenue, on the boulevard, coming into Poletown, they're all being diverted over here. So this, which is normally just an eastbound lane of the boulevard, now hosting cars going both ways because they can't go through this big flood over here. Same view, just showing the chimney and a little bit of the roof of the Gray Lawn apartment building. So this looks due north. This is St. Florian. Same smokestack that appeared in the previous picture. And this is the picture that's on the poster. This is looking due north. Boulevard, Horton, Finley, Newton. There is Beth Oldham Cemetery, Dodge, Maine, businesses along Joseph Campo. Same view. That section, that was the first to go. That was the first to be completely obliterated, was that section west of Joseph Campo and north of the boulevard. Just to turn the camera slightly to pick up the Dodge Maine facility. Note this building on the corner, there are design elements here like stars. There are 3 stars that shows up in another picture I have. Gas station on the corner. And there are the stars. Again, they're a little hard to see, but that's the same building. There are the star patterns up on the top of that. This is a couple I met. I wrote their name on there so I wouldn't forget it, but it's being blocked by something. So Don and Marie, they lived in Poletown, and they found me and contacted me and told me all about the lives in Poletown. But the Irish Theater was there on that corner where the gas station was in 1981. Drugstore. I'm still in touch with them. They moved from Sterling Heights down to Tennessee. This picture was around 1955. And this is I just combined those two so you sort of get the whole sweep of the view from the roof of the Gray Lawn. This just kind of shows how it looked up on the roof. Would have been fun to be up there at night, but I never did that. Now I am looking due east.
St. John the Evangelist.
Okay, you can help me out here. Yeah.
That was my church.
Okay.
I should know it.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The hospital is right a little
the
further
hospital. This was sort of what
St.
nurses
Joseph
or
Mercy
residents-
Hospital is right on the end.
Yeah, the
Right there.
hospital's right there.
That's the hospital my
And
parents
then
died in.
This be your school, right?
No.
Or somebody's, who was, yes. Right there, you can see a little bit of it.
St. John's.
Yes.
And then the rectory.
So this would be Mitchell Street. But this is later. I didn't take this photograph earlier on for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe there were a lot of trees and you couldn't really see anything. But they're now turning again and looking southeast. Park School, Milwaukee Boulevard, Miss Stell Coal Company Fuel.
Missley Coal Company.
What was it?
Missley Coal Company out of
Missley.
Milwaukee. Yeah.
Okay, so they had the trucks and they supplied the fuel
Yeah,
heating.
they delivered the coal and you had to put it in the coal bin.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
This would be Joseph Campo, I believe. Shane Street, Milwaukee Street. Someone contacted me, a guy named Michael Roper, and he was a Detroiter. He was an owner of the Old Miami Bar on Cass Avenue. He's very active in the city of Detroit, but he moved to Chicago a long time ago. But he loved this area. So he found out about my Detroit photographs, contacted me and said, Bruce, have you ever heard of a wonderful little restaurant called Radio Lunch? And I'm like, this doesn't ring a bell with me. I knew, Famous Barbecue. But he told me, he described to me about where it would have been. So I went through my negatives, and from what he said about it being on Milwaukee, not far east of Shane, I said, well, if it's anywhere, it would be here. And sure enough, that is it, right there. Radio Lunch. Anybody ever go?
That. My grandfather owned that restaurant and owned that corner. So that's Radio Lunch where you pointed out. Next to it was a beauty shop. Yep.
So that's a blow up.
Yep. Next to it was
Of
a
the
beauty
sec-
shop. And then
Here's the beauty shop. You can see a silhouetted head there.
and
also
then
read
the
radio.
baker was next to the left there on the other side.
What was?
A shoemaker.
Yeah, right
And
here.
my grandparents lived on the right-hand side, the right-hand flat, and we
Yes.
lived on the left. And at one time, we moved when I was in second grade in that bay window. One memory that I have, I made my little sister walk across like a duck and then shot her with the dart gun there. So you can imagine what the people on Milwaukee seen. And but the interesting thing that I always think about that scenario there with no air conditioning, you can imagine the noises
Upstairs.
and
Yeah.
yeah, the buses, when a fire truck came by,
Yeah.
it was great because you had the upper view and
Yeah.
so. But that was a good place to live, definitely.
And you
I
had a
met
bus
her-
stop right in front of your place.
Right.
So that was it, the Radio Lunch. And then I met the Belot family.
That's us, yes.
At this event at the Hamtramck Historical Museum, and they gave me some pictures from Radio Lunch. I did not, I kick myself a lot, as we all do in life, for the things we didn't do. And I wish I had put my camera down here and just taken more of a close-up of that storefront, because it is very interesting with these old signs. And I probably walked by that 100 times. But why it never caught my eye, it's one of the great mysteries of life. I don't
The other
know.
building was a barber shop, that's right.
This one?
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've heard
There
that.
was a gas station on the corner that
Yeah.
was torn down.
There you go.
Do you want to tell us about this? So this is there's a shoe repair, here's a silhouetted figure, a beauty shop, and here are the stairs. See, here's the opening. This is where they are, right there. Okay.
Yeah.
So the couple getting married is my mom, the bride, and my grandfather, Jackie, was the owner of Radio Lunch. lived, as my brother had said, upstairs, so they came down the stairs. And to the right and the left are my mom's bridesmaids and two of my aunts. My Aunt Joni, who's here, and my Aunt Marilyn, who is here. And then my dad's brother, my Uncle Bob, is also here.
This is what happens, you know, a lot of times, due to this photography, things like this happen, all right? You know, I meet people who have had firsthand, they know who these people are. I have photographed, some of my cash quarter pictures, I posted some of those, and people were telling me who these kids were. I took their picture 40 years ago, I never had any idea who they were. And people were telling me who they are, and they've grown up, whether they're still alive or not. And so and this is just a wonderful story. I was thrilled to, yes?
And if you notice that there's a bunch of old people around here, it's an old-fashioned Polish wedding, because they do have an accordion and a drummer, and I think it looks like a clarinet, yeah.
Yeah.
The mini polka band.
And that's the old Polish way that they used to do with the bride.
Doesn't get any better. So where were you headed? Where were they headed? To the church?
To the church,
Yeah.
St. John's.
to St. John's.
Right over on the boulevard.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
So what happened with the building, my grandparents moved to Warren before the riots, and we were still there, I believe. And then the people, they ended up selling the restaurant and maybe the whole building. We moved out to Warren, and the people that had purchased the restaurant lost it for taxes.
Oh.
Yep.
And that's the inside.
That's the inside.
They lost it.
And they lost it for taxes, and somehow my grandfather found out that the plant was coming through, so he paid the back taxes, so he was paid for the property when the plant came through. I don't know how we found out about that, but
Yeah.
he did end up getting the restaurant back. And we actually have pictures inside, and I was hoping to find them, and I may have already sent them to you. But we went in there before they demolished it and took pictures, and there were
Yeah, I
still
saw a few
plates
of those.
and a clock and the Radio 1 sign my brother has. And then I stole the Milwaukee sign off the street sign. And there was a cop that rode by and just shook his head.
So actually, one of the jobs that my grandfather gave me, you see how the counter's there? I had to scrape the gum off the bottom of it for $1 an hour. I think I worked about a half hour and went around the corner and bought a comic book.
Okay, well, that's. So a friend went with me to the Gray Lawn once and took this picture of me. So that's how the photographs were taken with that type of camera, yeah.
What kind of camera did you actually, what's the brand of the camera you
Well, it's
took?
like what they call a speed graphic. It's actually a newspaper, 1940s, 50s newspaper person's camera. You've
Right.
seen it with the big
Yeah, I've
flash
seen it.
on
That's a big
the
camera.
side, but I used it more as on a tripod. I didn't hand hold it.
Too bad you didn't have an iPhone.
There's a dude.
Okay. So we jumped
Bad feeling.
from 81 to 89. This is the first time that I ever saw Ed feeding. I was out for a walk. I was way over on Moran Street, and I headed west. And I ended up over by Stanislaus, and I was walking along the sidewalk, and I came upon this group celebrating on their front yard the 4th of July. And I asked if I could take some pictures. And Ed understood pictures, as you will see. So this is Ed's girlfriend. Her name was Carol. I heard a lot about Carol. He had a lot of pictures of Carol. This was the only time I ever met Carol or saw Carol. I saw Ed a lot after this, but I don't know what happened to Carol. This is Ed's paternal grandmother, Pauline Lubinsky. So I took this picture, Ed's house. Just another one, a little. Who knew Ed here? A few of you are familiar with Ed.
Ed's our cousin. I was less than 2 years.
Yeah, hi. He's your cousin?
Yeah.
Yes. Ed, this is, again, it's a little hard to read, but this is the woman, the grandmother in the previous photo. But she was born around the turn of the century. So when I met her and took her picture on the 4th of July, she was about 90 years old, because that was 1989, and she was a Red Cross nurse during the World War I era. And here she is, my grandmother, Pauline Lubinska, 18 years old, and my great aunt Martha. So that's the same woman as a young woman. Ed was a scrapbooker par excellence. Ed was born in 1947. What's the St. Patrick? Is there a St. Patrick Hospital, or was in Hamtramck? Does that ring a bell? St. Francis, maybe. He was born in the hospital in Hamtramck, and for the first 10 years of his life, he lived with his parents and siblings in an upper flat on Lyman Street between Milwaukee and Du Bois that was owned by his maternal grandparents, who I believe were, what's the? Patushka, right, and it says that on some of the pictures.
Close.
Pardon?
Close. Catherine and Joseph.
Okay. So they lived, are you aware of any of this, or? Yeah.
So did I.
So Feedy family lived above in the upper flat. When Ed was 10, his father decided to move, half a mile south to Du Bois Street. And that's where I met Ed. He lived just north of St. Stanislaus Church on Du Bois, just south of the Edsel Ford service drive. So he started out here somewhere on, here's the boulevard, Lyman, and they moved over here to the neighborhood of St. Stanislaus Church when Ed was 10, so 1957. Now here is there a reason why that's cut off at the bottom? It just is, I guess. It's okay. You can see the name Pashtushka, right?
That's his mom.
That's your mother?
Yes.
Have you?
That was Eddie's aunt. Eddie's sister was Jenny.
Yeah. So that was the sister of Ed's mother.
Right.
So and it was their home. Do you know this picture?
Oh.
So this is I believe this is Lyman, right? You know, Ed's. You'll see a little bit more about Ed's scrapbooks, but you talk about art. Detroit art, all the different art forms we have in Detroit. I put Ed's for the heart and soul that he put into this stuff and the way he put this together. This stuff ranks right up there with some of the better works of art that have been produced in the city of Detroit.
Do you have any photographs of that?
Pardon?
Ed's art, of Ed's work? Do you have any photographs of Ed's pictures of his art?
No, this is the scrapbooks are Ed's art. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just to look through them, they are enthralling. They are moving. They are very, very. Ed saved he saved everything, and he arranged it beautifully in scrapbooks. You'll see here.
Ed used to write a lot of articles for in the St. Stanislaus Bulletin. Did you ever see any of those? Like he used to write a column.
I heard about this. Yeah. Ed's mother. This is Ed's mother. And I'm Lyman Street, probably still on Lyman. I'm guessing looking east along Lyman. So this is the old neighborhood on Du Bois Street. Whether any of these homes are still standing or not, I don't know. I don't know if that's the west side of Du Bois or the east side of Du Bois, but it was probably right there south, somewhere south of St. Stanislaus Church. This is how it looked when I was over there in around 1989. And Ed's house was sandwiched between this building and this building. I drove by here the other day and I saw these, it's sort of an archway, two archways in the front of this building, and sure enough, Ed's house was right in there. St. Stanislaus, of course, his Aunt Celie lived in one of these houses. We went into her home and interviewed her and photographed in her home. And then, of course, his grandmother was there.
The one with the arched windows, that was Wasik's funeral home, the original location.
Oh, before it moved around?
Because I live across the street on this side, you don't see, there's a tree there. I live next to the gas station.
Over here?
The big house next to the gas
Oh, the
station.
little gas station that
Yes,
was?
a little gas station, and we were the house next to. So just
Okay, yeah, that just
Yeah.
collapsed and they demolished it
Yes.
recently.
Six was here, and then they told me 1947 is when they bought the coal company on Medbury. It was Józefiak's Coal Company.
Right. Oh.
And they moved from Du Bois onto Medbury.
Right across
So
from
they
the
would be
school.
across from the church.
From the church.
Yes.
I think in one of the scrapbook pictures, I'm not sure I have it in here, but there are people standing out in front of the funeral
And
home.
So Celie lived, the house right there with the porch, she lived downstairs.
Yes. Oh,
And the grandmother lived like in a little apartment, like in the back.
oh, so she lived with her, yes. I
Yes.
sort of forget these things, but one of these houses is still inhabited, but it's a real mess.
Yeah, the corner one is still there. That one with the porch is still there. And next to it is gone. The funeral home is still there.
Yes.
And then that little house where Ed lived for a while, that's still there.
Yes.
But the rest is gone. The hardware store is gone, the cleaners is gone, the bar is gone.
What was the hardware? Was that Feedy Brothers
That was
hardware?
Feedy Hardware.
See, I heard about that. Yeah. All right, we gotta move along. So as I always,
That's why he looks familiar. He used to come around.
as I do, often I manage to get inside. Fact is, some people are very open to what I was doing. It was a project, a university project, and they liked being photographed. They were interested. Many instances, I never got this far, but this is Ed. This is how I remember him. And then, I guess a couple things to remember about Ed is, he lived his entire life, almost, right there where I showed you, Lyman Street to Milwaukee. He went to Vietnam, and he ended up in a rehab center. But, in the interview, he talks about, how people would say, "You still living in that neighborhood?" And he was very proud of that neighborhood. And he said, "What are you talking about? This is still a good," he stood up for that area, and he was one of the real holdouts. And Ed, in the 70s, I believe, he developed pain, chronic pain, and he had it when I knew him, and I could tell that he suffered from it. Something you hear about people.
He had a motorcycle accident, and he also fell off the porch, second-story porch, so he got hurt a couple times. Very.
I don't know if he ever told me that. He said something about he thought it might have been from Agent Orange when he was in Vietnam.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that was probably true too, but I knew that he was my coached at St. Stanley. He's my basketball coach.
Yeah,
And then baseball coach later. And I didn't go to St. Stanley, but I still played with the team because they didn't have a catcher.
Right.
So they put me on the team because they needed a guy, and I had a different name, but I knew him all the time until he died. I knew that I would talk, because I was in music business my whole life, that's what I do.
oh, okay.
And so he thought we were in the same business, you know.
Yeah.
We were in the same business, and I would say, we got to do a show. You know.
Well, this was Ed's little house.
Yeah, before karaoke, he would do his own concerts in his living room.
Yeah. And he was a great collector of autographed pictures of celebrities. He had a real collection, and I can read this quickly here. My girlfriend and I waited outside one time to meet Engelbert Humperdinck. We stood in front of the Hotel St. Regis in Detroit, in parentheses, in Detroit's News Center area, for 2.5 hours, waiting in the cold just to meet him. Finally, he came out. We walked up to him and we got pictures with him. Wayne Newton. That was taken at the Omni International Hotel, downtown Detroit. Juliet Prowse, I met at the Fisher Theater. And Mary Hart. That was after a fashion show in Sterling Heights. Connie Stevens I met, and Fabian were at Four Bears Water Park. Bob Hope and Jay Leno, that was at the Fox Theater. Tim Conway I met at the Whitney Restaurant right here on
He
Woodford.
was funny when he showed you the pictures, they're like his friends. You know, he knew that, and it was mine, he knew that, you know, his buddies. And we had like literally, last time I saw him, we had 3 different, you know, those photo albums, this thing, all with celebrities.
Yeah.
I used to call them stalkers because it's hard to get pictures. You really want to do that.
This is Bob Hope. But anyway, he had all these. There's Madonna over there in the shadows. This is George and Barbara Bush signed. So that was Ed's front door. A little more pensive Ed. Ed with Willie Nelson. Kind of hard to see. He told me this was actually Elvis's signature that was on that poster. I don't know what ever happened to that. And then we also tried to photograph just the interiors of these homes, just for what people bought, what they collected. So I took pictures of all the rooms and all the walls. Ed learned taxidermy, he told me, in a correspondence course. So these are animals that he actually taxidermied. He stuffed them. And he would say that he had all these hobbies. He said he told me that he had these hobbies to keep his mind, try to keep his mind off of his pain, the pain that he had.
Good luck when you have it.
This is a plaque.
Yeah, I can't read it.
Detroit River Salmon Champ, 1978, I believe. Ed Feedy. You'll see more about that in a moment. Same room. All these, another collection, all these little bottles. This is his bedroom. You know, it's the same. Almost all of these. Al Kaline, Katie Lang, Cher, almost all signed by these celebrities. Whether he got, some probably came in the mail, but, and of course here's Ed. Elvis is the big one. And this is Elizabeth Taylor. And there was a time, and I remember when Elizabeth Taylor, something was wrong, and she had pain, a lot of pain. It was in the news at the time. And Ed wrote her a letter, a sort of a sympathy letter, because he too suffered from pain. And you can read, I blew it up, and this is a picture of her. The envelope is here also, framed. She said, "Your expression This is Elizabeth Taylor to Ed. Your expression of caring and thoughtfulness has truly helped to support me in these last few difficult months. Thank you for taking the time to write to me and for your sensitivity and love. Love, Elizabeth. I don't know what happened to all this stuff. Kind of sad. So this is the salmon that Ed caught, and that's what this plaque says. Caught by Ed Beatty in the Detroit River salmon contest in 1978. This was Ed's workroom. Same room. A snapshot of one wall in Ed's kitchen.
Okay, now this is.
So Ed had made all these scrapbooks, and here is Ed First Holy Communion photographs. These all have captions, so it's just sort of hard to read, but this says, "Me when I made my first Holy Communion." And here's a card, St. Stanislaus, 1st of May, 1956, I believe. So he was born in 47.
Bruce, can I take a picture of that picture? Because I have the cell phone number of the guy that lives in that house, and I'd love to send him this and ask him where are the rest of the pictures, because they might be in that house.
Yeah, or I could just get it. Yeah, you're not going to get very good quality. I could get it to you whatever.
Send him something and say,
That's
hey, Tom. Much knows Tom. He knows him too.
Are these in your book, these photographs? Is it okay that I'm taking pictures? Is it okay that I took some pictures?
Oh, sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm a photographer.
I'll give you
I
credit.
understand.
I'll put your name in credit.
I understand. So this is his. Here's Ed. I mean, Ed was a good-looking young man. And these are his friends. Here's his principal, St. Stanislaus School, Kennedy Johnson, for America, for president, Democrat, pastor, principal, Uncle Ralph T-Y-L-E. Ed, these are Ed's girlfriends. Martin J. Lubinsky, a funeral card, October 1886 to August of 1961.
He was an all-city basketball player.
Ed was an athlete.
He was a really good athlete.
He was an athlete, too. Yeah, you know, Ed went to St. Stanislaus School, kindergarten through senior year. He was all-state in certain sports. He was a musician. He said, I had lots of girlfriends. I was a homecoming king when I was a senior. So he lived, he lived in the neighborhood. He was an altar boy along with his brother for years. Then he met his future wife. They were married in the early 70s, I think, and they moved from the flat of his father's mother across the street on Du Bois. They had 2 daughters, and that was when this pain came, and that affected the marriage. So the marriage eventually dissolved. She left, but Ed had custody, retained custody of the 2 girls. So he kept them. They lived with him in the little house where I photographed him. And he said, he was able to raise them with the help of his family in the neighborhood. But he was very active as a young man. And then he went to Vietnam. He was in Vietnam in 67 or 68, came back, resumed coaching certain sports at St. Stanislaus, and he worked at Dodge, Maine for a while, and and that's when you were, he worked at Dodge, Maine. He worked at some of the other smaller factories in the Milwaukee Junction. This is a picture I posted. This is his father making breakfast, and Ed's mother, Ed's brother, Ed. And he said the caption is, the day after I got home from Vietnam.
That's on the same page?
I posted that just recently, yes. I'm not sure the caption is on it, but, yeah, Ed, there's a quote in, he said, "I was in Vietnam and I was getting these letters from my girlfriend saying that there are tanks in Parian Park during the civil unrest in Detroit, unrest in 1967. Detroit riots. Well, yeah, but he said tanks, but he said, I'm supposed to be in a war over here, and they're telling me that there are all these military vehicles on Shane Street." And, that neighborhood was, Christmas, Halloween, and all these people, they celebrated and decorated. This is Ed's little house, and Christmas. Ed and Carol, 1983. Here's this is the article about catching the salmon. Our hero of the month is Detroiter Ed Feedy, who hooked and landed a 20-pound Chinook salmon in the channel behind the Detroit Yacht Club on Belle Isle within sight of Detroit's skyline. He offers living proof of the massive effort to clean up the Detroit River is working. Remember Bob Bennett, local newsman? Feedy Brothers Hardware. Ed talked about this. I didn't really know where it was, but it was his great-grandparents, I guess. Pardon?
The name of the hardware?
Yeah, Feedy Brothers Hardware, we call it.
Yeah, that was like in 1905 or something.
Yeah, and then they were around for a long time, and then they.
on the Shane group of that part of the family, but I know the other Feedys that have done it before, and they don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Part of the family. They have the same name.
Now it says my great-grandma Agnes Feedy, cousin Walter Feedy, and great-grandpa Lawrence Feedy in front of Feedy Brothers Hardware. This is his father, who was fought in World War II. War ends. These are his father's pictures taken in Europe or Africa, wherever he was during the war. Picture my dad had in the Army, daydreaming of being with Ma. And that is Aunt Celie on Du Bois Street. And the caption says something about Aunt Celie's.
That would be taken on Du Bois in front of Wassik's funeral. They had, for some reason, way back in the day, they had a flag in the sidewalk.
Oh.
And my family has tons of pictures. Everybody went by the flag in front of the funeral home to take pictures.
Oh, good. So that's actually in a hole in the ground, in the cement.
There was a hole there.
So this would be the west side of Du Bois then.
Yeah.
Interesting. My grandmother Pauline Feedy, so this is the same woman, the same grandmother that was born around the turn of the century, I believe. My grandmother Pauline Feedy, this photo was blown up and put on billboards urging people to buy U.S. saving bonds in the 1940s during the war. Parents' wedding at St. Stanislaus Church. Family members. There is a picture where all the names are listed. Ed listed all the names. Here they are, the newlyweds. This may be Peshtushka. This is probably Lyman. Oh, here they are. You can't really read it, but here's the couple. So some of you might know some of the people in this picture.
Oh, yeah, that's my dad, thank you.
Where?
That one, yes, correct, that's my father.
So is it?
Thank you.
So cool.
This is the one you posted.
Yeah, this is Lyman. This is the upper flat on Lyman Street.
My mom on the right.
There. Yeah, they're wonderful. Wonderful documentary.
I want to thank you so much for like that picture you posted like with my grandparents stuff. My grandfather died before my parents were married.
Well, I looked through my pictures. I looked through all Ed's pictures today, and I scanned a lot, and I found a number of more Peshtushka pictures. So we're gonna get together, and you're gonna get whatever you want. Then a lot of his pages were dedicated to the church, St. Stanislaus. That's Ed, Vietnam veteran. This is a family. This was his wife with the baby and grandmother. Dawn Marie Thede, born July 17, 1973, Detroit Memorial Hospital, 1:07 p.m., weight 7 pounds, 11 ounces. Someone's hair. Kimberly, Kimberly first haircut, so that was one of the girls. Here's Ed's driver's license. The last Christmas card I got from my grandmother, Babci, Catherine Peshtushka. Here is, may there always be a star to guide you, a smile to cheer you, a friend beside you, and so on. Love, Babci, Grandma Catherine Peshtushka. Card that she signed and gave to Ed. Wasik, right? Is that the looks like Wysocki.
Wysocki, yeah.
Is that the same one that was in the neighborhood? Yeah.
No, it tells where that funeral home was, right on the bottom.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I didn't catch it.
On Ryan.
Yeah.
Oh, Ryan Road, so that's something else. This is when they were trying to save the church in 1989. One of the flyers that Ed had saved in his scrapbook. Reunion Mass to keep St. Stanislaus open, February 26th, 89. I did not attend, and I don't know. I don't know why. I guess I just was unaware of it. Let's see what it is. There's Ed.
That is
I think I posted this. This is St. Stanislaus. I went into St. Stanislaus in July of '89, and there happened to be a wedding going on. So I went up to the loft and I took some pictures, and I went down to the basement and took a picture of the setup where the reception was going to be. And then a few days later, I went back and with my tripod, and I actually did a lot of details inside this main sanctuary
I can take it
area.
in there now if you want to go take some pictures of what's left of it. It's not.
You can get in there?
Oh, yeah. Because there's a caretaker that lives in the church.
I'd like to do that.
Steward.
Yeah, somebody else told me that, but I didn't know how to go about it, but I'd like to do that. I also went into the rectory and photographed, did a portrait of the priest and photographed a lot of
The rectory's falling down.
yeah, the rectory's a wreck. Photographed the kitchen and the dining room and the hall of the rectory, so I have that all documented. There's the rectory. That's
Yeah, that's the rectory.
kind of how it looks today, only I think it looks, this is probably 3 or 4 years old, so it looks even worse. So that's Ed. I lost touch with Ed, as happens. But years later, I met a guy who knew where Ed was. And I found out that he was in a rehab center in Southfield. And I called and I asked, I inquired, and they said, yes, Ed Thede is here. So I drove over there, and he recognized me in a second. He said, he was in a big room. Someone was reading the newspaper to all these people in wheelchairs. And he said, Bruce Harkness, Wayne State University.
Nice.
So I visited Ed on a regular basis in his
He never came
room.
home from there.
Pardon?
He never came back home from there, I believe.
Don't ruin my story.
Sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, he never. So this is how he looked. He was very active. He was sort of the head of the activity group there. He'd organize these things and they'd be playing the video games. I played it. I think it was a tennis game or something with a big TV screen. He liked licorice. I'd take him licorice. And at some point, the thing about his scrapbooks came up, topic of his scrapbooks, and he's like, yeah, Richard has them. They're still in that house on the,
Oh my God.
right on Du Bois at the on the Edsel Ford service drive. I want you to get them. So I went down there and nobody answered, but I left a note. I didn't think I'd ever hear from anybody. I said, I'm Bruce Harkness, I'm a friend of Ed. Ed wants his scrapbooks. Sure enough, a guy called me. Nice man. He called. And I had met this Richard. I had photographed, I think I posted it, he and Ed out in the front yard of a yard sale on Du Bois Street. He was an old friend. So I gave him a little money just for his understanding, and he gave me this set of scrapbooks, and I took them down to Ed, and I guess the one that from his high school years was missing. A couple of them were missing, and he regretted very much that he didn't have that one, because I think that one really meant the most to him. But I kept them at home, and there they are, and that's when I was able to scan them. This is Ed's, not surprising, this is Ed's room decorated with photographs. At the, here's Ed Elvis Feedy. Here's some of his celebrity pictures up here. That's the scrapbooks. And Ed always talked about, he was talking about that he had hoped that he was going to have an operation. And they would take him and he would go and they would assess him. But when I talked to him, it's like didn't really seem to be progress being made on this. But he talked about maybe getting out of this place and being able to live on his own again. But something happened and he took a turn for the worse, and he was in the hospital. And I visited him a few times in the hospital, and I don't remember exactly how it happened. I think Ed gave me a phone number for one of his daughters, and I called and I told the daughter what was going on. And the girls, after Ed moved to his home on Du Bois, when the girls were of age, they were gone. Ed told me that, and he never really ever saw them. They took off, and he was there on his own with his friends and girlfriend. But they did come back to Detroit. And I met them, and that was when I gave them all the scrapbooks. And they told me that they thought that they said, we didn't think we'd ever see these again. We thought these had just been thrown away.
Treasure.
Pardon?
It's a treasure.
Yeah.
To get that.
Yeah, and so they have them now.
That's great.
So Ed passed away, and I went to a gathering at the rehab center. This is a big board of pictures that they put together in memory and tribute to Ed. And this is a group. This is a group of his friends. This is one of Ed's daughters, and this is the other daughter. Those are his two daughters, and nurses and residents of the.
I haven't seen them since they were little girls.
Pardon me?
I haven't seen them since they were little girls.
Oh. I attended the funeral the day here, July 31st, 2012. It's at Mount Olivet Cemetery in the Theedy plot, and a lot of these people whose names you have seen here are buried there. There are a number of Theedys and other relatives there. So I still go. Brianne Krasinski, who did a wonderful little book on Poletown, we went there one time to Father Karashevitz's grave, who was the priest at Immaculate Conception. Wonderful guy who I met and talked to once, and died probably 1981, I think.
He died. He died at St. Hyacinth's in the rectory.
Right.
They found him one morning,
Yeah.
because they invited him to come there when they closed his church.
Yes, when they closed Immaculate Conception. Yeah, sweet man. Nice man. This is Ed's. I failed to point out in one of those first pictures I showed. This tree was in one of those pictures. I taken on the 4th of July, but it was just a little spindly thing. And also in that picture is this red
Eagle.
eagle.
It was on the,
So it was there then, and
yeah.
even though the house is ruined, it survived all those years. But it is no longer there, because I have it, because I know that house, I'm going to go over there one day and that house is going to be gone. And this would crumble and be broken. So I talked to the guy who lives down the street.
Can I take a picture of you with the eagle?
We made a little deal, and we pried this off the front of Ed's house because I wanted to
That's so nice.
save this. Got it? Yeah. You guys take entirely too long to take a photo.
Joe, I know how you were with that.
I'm gonna, Ed Thiede is going to have the final say today, so.
That one day I was just down and I used to think about how my grandmother, she's 91 now, so I wrote her a poem one time, and the name of the poem was called You're the World's Best Grandma. So I wrote, you're the world's best grandma, and as sweet as can be. And I hope these words will tell you what you really mean to me. Grandma, I'll never forget for me all that you have done. We shared a lot of good times, and we always did have fun. I remember one Christmas walking downtown, and you holding my hand, and you took me to Hudson's to see Santa in Toyland. And then
change it to the next picture.
When he sat me on his lap, I just started to cry. But you came up to me and wiped all my tears dry, and then you asked me why. Then you told me if I didn't cry and was a good boy, that Santa would give me a brand new shiny toy. And I didn't get a gift from Santa that day. No, and I did get a gift from Santa that day, a brand new kazoo. But somehow I knew that it wasn't from Santa, Grandma. It was from you. You bought me my first electric train, a camera, and my first guitar. You were a jolly Mrs. Santa and the best grandma by far. And I'll never forget one time when you put up my hair in pin curls with rollers and a stocking as you sat me on a chair. And when I first got married and I needed a new home, it was you who I came to for help, and you gave me a loan. See, my grandma borrowed me a lot of money. And whenever I got sick, lying in bed needing a cure, it was your old-fashioned remedies that always worked for sure. And I remember your 90th birthday when you danced with me. I was so proud you were my grandma, as proud could be. Thanks for everything, Grandma, and I want you to know that you're the world's greatest grandma, and I love you so. Love your grandson.
There was one more picture, but I couldn't get the clicker to.
I'm trying to click now.
No, that's okay. Do you see it on there? Or? Here was a picture of Ed's house with him standing on the porch when it was in perfect condition. It's funny we got through all of them except for the. That's okay.
He's got it on the screen over there, but he can't get it up here.
That's why I said maybe you might be able to get the clicker to work.
No, it's not. It's on the little.
Is it?
It's on the little screen.
Try
There. Nope.
No, try your clicker. Maybe it'll work on your clicker.
This doesn't want to go to the last picture for some reason. It's on the screen if you want to take a look at it. You can
I thought that he was reading the phone. And his niece,
My cousin.
Ed reading the poem. It wasn't the guy on the screen.
No, that was, I didn't, maybe I wasn't clear enough. That was Ed's voice
Yeah.
from the recordings. Any questions about anything?
But you know what year Ed wrote that poem to his grandmother? He wrote that to his grandmother, speaking.
Well, he was saying, talking about her 90th, I remember your 90th birthday. So that was right about when I met him, because that was 89, she was born 1900, so it must have been right around that time. Thank you, everybody, very much. My book with me on $25. If anybody would like a copy, I have a number of them here. There's also a poster. You can take a look at the picture. One of the pictures.
I lived on Lyman. Then from Lyman, I moved on Du Bois. Okay. Oh, I lived in that neighborhood. I grew up in that neighborhood.